Well,
Hey.
Cathy, you look absolutely unbelievable. I love this Mao Nehru collar and the very stylish shoes.
Thank you.
Fortunately, nobody at the Virtual Being Summit can see what you're seeing right now, which is a red-headed sort of t-shirt and shorts slob on his way to the beachside. So you're upping the elegance quotient of the summit by a heck of a lot. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I got to keep it classy, right? I am the godmother of the
I know,
metaverse.
the godmother of the
So,
metaverse and a mutant ape as well. I've really appreciated. I thought it was so cool when I started seeing your bylines also have the mutant ape. I thought that was very bold and gutsy and super cool.
yeah. And I even tried to update my Forbes picture, but I
Mm,
think it got reverted.
mm.
I have a
That's
feeling
right.
that,
You see, the
yeah.
centralized
Yeah.
agents are, they're all fighting NFTs and all that. So it seems like you're a bit of a dab hand at Decentraland. What are some of your favorite metaverses or favorite parts of the metaverse, favorite worlds? How do you kind of think about it? And are they all decentralized? Are they all centralized? How do you think of it?
I mean, let's say with the Central Land, I don't necessarily spend, millions of hours here. I've been here like to the casino and things like
Mm,
that, or if there's
mm,
like a special event or
mm,
something like that. But yeah, I mean, I find these decentralized, platforms quite interesting.
mm.
I don't own land in Decentraland. I own land in the Sandbox.
Oh
I
my God,
used to own
so
land
cool.
in yeah, I used to own land in Upland, but I do advising for them, so I can't. I had to divest
Mm,
myself um,
that's a good point.
from that.
Um,
So yeah,
Well, Sandbox I love as well, and Sebastian is
yeah.
speaking at the summit. So, oh my God, Cathy, I'm
Ah,
very worried for you now. No, oh my God, Cathy,
it went down
oh
already.
my God, oh my God,
I'll meet you at the
there you
bar.
are. No, I'm here now. Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you. Let's go
Oh
have
my
some
God.
drinks
So
with an
there's a
octopus.
crypto punk, very exciting. Oh my God, there is an octopus. Welcome, traveler. How can I help you? It's quite exciting. And they look quite busy boring. That is actually a great idea for an octopus to psychologically control us because they're much more intelligent than us and they have more hands, but more importantly, they're more intelligent.
Uh-oh.
Um,
I
so
got
wait,
kicked
where
out.
did you go? You got kicked out. Okay.
Yeah, I got kicked
Don't
out.
worry.
Let me
I'm,
let me
I'm
let me
having
get
a
back
great,
in.
this guy is now a guest in the Virtual Being Summit. So, you've been relegated, Cathy. Octopus Man is a vaunted guest at the Virtual
All right,
Beings
I'm
and
coming.
Virtual
I'm coming
Society
back in.
Summit. Oh my
Okay,
God,
come on.
there's a lot of dialogue here. Is this GPT-3 over here? I mean, it's kind of endless. It's very cool.
All right, I'm coming back in. All right, you're at the bar. Let me go over there.
I am indeed.
Let's have a drink. Ed.
I kind of love having proper NPCs in these virtual worlds. I think that's
Yeah,
super cool. Wait, is this a person or is this an NPC?
it's an NPC.
Okay, okay. I'm a little bit.
He's always here.
I know. I was kind of like, have I seen this guy before? Is this
Always here.
massive Doge man? Um,
Here.
so, wow, interesting. So, how has life been treating you, Cathy? How are you doing as the godmother of the metaverse?
Life is really good. Very
Mhm.
busy.
Mm. Well, I was saying, so as godmother of the metaverse, I do have an important question, which is, um, how does one choose amongst one's children when they're bickering? Because there are some children who are decentralized, and there are some children who are centralized, and it feels like they're on very different. They're like one's going to become a cop and one's going to become like a bank robber, and they're going to like
Wow.
meet each other and be like, "What did you do?" Cathy's going to be so disappointed in us for fighting. Like, how do you think about that dichotomy between the two kids, the decentralized kids like Sandbox, Decentraland, and the centralized kids like Fortnite? How do you think about it?
Yeah, it's almost like I have two families.
Right, exactly. You're going to have to go
Right?
from family to
Yeah.
family and kind of keep up pretenses, and both of them are going to be like, Cathy was always there for me. She was such a good godmother, and they'll never know at the funeral, Cathy. 100
That
years
gets
from now, because of
complicated.
longevity, your
Yeah.
decentralized godchildren will come and be like, wait, what? She was nurturing you too?
Well, what I would say, I mean, I'm really excited about, the decentralized metaverses, like,
Mm,
like Decentraland and Sandbox and
mm,
Upland and
mm,
all of these. I'm very excited. I think there's a lot of potential, a
mm,
lot of opportunity. I mean, just like a lot of people, I guess my concept of the metaverse at the end of the day does have to do with interoperability.
yes.
And I think that that's going to be needed.
Mm,
So yeah, I mean, you can accomplish that in a decentralized way. So do you want to head out?
yeah. Yeah. Let's explore a little bit. Um,
So
well, I guess the question is, can we achieve it in a centralized way? Like that's what I've been wondering. Like, is the metaverse uniquely suited to decentralization? Like, are we really going to be okay 5 years from now if Tim Sweeney, the great genius, who's, a personal hero, if he is able to change the color of the world where we're spending 10 to 12 hours every day, where we have our job and all that, change the color of the sky, change the physics, confiscate all our property. Um, because the power that a CEO over a centralized metaverse would have, if we're really going to do what they say we're going to do, like live there and work there, would be quite scary, quite dictatorial, I think.
yeah, obviously, and I think that that's the vision that a lot of us don't want to fall into, is that idea and that
Mm,
concept of the oasis. At the end of the day, I don't
mm,
think anyone wants
mm.
to live in the oasis
Right. I'd kind of
as it
forgotten
is.
exactly. There is a very terrible Ben Mendelsohn character that we've got to avoid.
Yeah, which is, a lot of, and let me turn towards you.
Thank
Um,
you, Cathy. That's very nice. That's very nice
yeah.
etiquette of you.
And I think, at the end of the day, it's, you know, you know, it's the big question. It's like Web 1.0, right? That's
Mm,
information, connected information.
mm,
Web 2.0 connected people. We got
mm,
social media, and now Web 3.0, where we're heading, connects people, places, and things. And
mm,
sometimes these people, places, and things can be fully synthetic or virtual. Sometimes they can be, in the real world with some level of augmentation. It's really going to depend. And I think the big question there is, do we have a chance in Web 3.0 because of blockchain and
mm,
opportunities of being decentralized to do things differently than we did, in Web 2.0? The promises,
mm,
the internet, when Web 1.0 was around and Web 2 was starting, like the promises of bettering humanity and everything. Can we really turn that ship around in Web 3.0?
mm, mm,
And in places, in the I guess the caliber of the people working on Web3 is so
mm,
high that it gives me a lot of hope.
mm. I think I love that redemption narrative. And I think that's true for a lot of people that I meet and get to know around, we went off in this terrible direction. And, obviously we've had this month, 9/11, and,
Yeah.
it's very interesting to realize that right a few months before 9/11, a lot of people in Congress were starting to wake up to Google, and starting to worry, my God, what is going on with all this data? It's terrible. We've got to completely change the rules. And um, obviously, a terrible event occurred, which meant that we did not focus on that. Obviously, it was important to focus on other things, but things developed in a way that does feel as though a lot of people who were part of Web 2 do have this desire for, I mean, redemption is a very strong word, but
Mhm.
redemption of what we all hoped this would be. And, not the rent seeking and not the exploitation and not the feeling of powerlessness. Um,
Yeah.
and so, there is a hope that we can actually bring something a bit more powerful to this and less exploitation.
Yeah, and less extraction. Like I feel
Yeah.
like people have their data has been extracted. Like this is just like ongoing. And
Mm,
in a lot of these, and what I'm seeing in a lot of these decentralized places and a lot of like the NFT projects that I write about or that I'm a part of is almost like power back to the user,
yes,
um,
totally.
power back to the community. and when you start to think about play to earn, I'm not saying that, the other, the way gaming has functioned for a long time, is going to go away. I think that there's still going to be, those types of models. I mean, people are still going to play Madden, people are still going to play, Fortnite and stuff. But I think that this newer model of play to earn, play to own is very interesting, is very relevant, can have great implications. And yeah, and I think, even in the fashion world, I was having an interview earlier today with Carrie Murphy from the Fabricant.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, we were chatting, and I'm part of one of their creators for season 0 of the Fabricant Studio. So they invited me to co-create a dress. So I created my Godmother of the Metaverse dress that's going to be sold as an NFT. And
that's so cool.
Yeah, and if you start thinking about it, it's even this idea of play to earn is even transitioning to where to earn, right? What if you wear something and you earn something? Like that just changes the whole paradigm. And play to earn, I think, is also one of those things where it changes the paradigm. And it's the extraction that basically the way I see it is the ways, and I wrote this in the article, the old advertising ways of Madison Avenue are just not going to work. Are just not going to work in the same way, because a lot of things in the metaverse have to do with authenticity, have to do with community. And if you're not creating community, if you're not understanding where the communities are and what the communities talk about and what is of interest to them, when a brand enters, if they don't understand that community, it's just going to seem tone deaf. So I think there's a lot of power in educating the companies and the brands that are interested in entering.
What do you mean by where to earn? Tell me about that. Oh, yeah, that's right.
I mean, imagine if I buy digital dress that increases in value. I mean, possibly the only thing that increases in value when you buy it in physical form is an Hermes bag.
That's what I've been,
right?
It's so crazy because I've put so much into the digital goods, and I'm looking right now. I mean, okay, so I'm in the digital world with you, but I also exist in the real world, which I, don't tell anyone, but I also exist in the real world. And I'm looking at this incredibly beat up Mini that I possess, which I can't even really claim has much sentimental value. I just don't really want to buy a first-hand car that, within a week goes down like 30% in value. It's kind of amazing psychologically how much more comfortable I am. And I think about my parents or people people who were so excited in the 60s to buy like an Aston Martin or something like that. Obviously that has gone up in value, but there's such a difference in these symbols, these status symbols that now will not physically decay or break down. It's as you say, with a dress and with all of that, almost all of them go down in value pretty much the second you wear them or do anything.
The second you step out of the car lot, when you buy a car, it's like, what is the amount it reduces in amount like 30% as soon as you drive it off, right? Whereas not everything, but most of the NFT PFPs that I've bought have increased in value. Not all of them, but most of them.
Well, another thing that sort of, outside of the financial aspect, there's also the labor that we're putting in to these virtual worlds. And it reminds me of Vitalik talking about his kind of, the end of his love affair with centralized games and centralized metaverses, when a spell that he had spent a huge amount of effort and time working towards, the developers, wow, you've really gone full Matrix there, Cathy, with going up. A spell that he'd put a lot of effort into getting, the developers were like, oh, well, we should change the damage of this, so to rebalance things. And what I love is that these worlds could have a computer enforced constitution that is voted on by the members, enforced by the computer, and actually allows people to exist in a virtual society where they get to set the rules themselves. And that doesn't mean that everything's clearly, games need to develop and evolve, but the users can actually do that.
Yeah, and I think there's so much so much power and so much promise, opportunity, promise.
mm,
I was writing something the other day for a new podcast that I'm doing with Adweek, and I
mm,
said, um, with we're trying to define the metaverse, and with
mm.
that, and let me turn towards you. Give me a second.
Yeah. Well, I'm just looking at this George Washington thing, and I think,
Yeah.
as one of the founding fathers of America,
Mm.
but I'm considering one of the founding godmothers of the metaverse. The
I'm
people
here.
going through this plaza, centuries from now, you'll be wearing this incredible suit, and they'll be like, oh yeah, one of the founding godmothers of the metaverse.
Well, I love what you told me the other day where you were like, maybe one day your articles are going to be in the Smithsonian. And I'm like, thank you.
I kind of think so. Like it's such a radical shift in, just in how we value ourselves in society, how we think about society, and the people who are helping to found the metaverse, I think, will be historic figures. I think it's a real thing. It doesn't exist now. Obviously, it's a mix of some really great big games and some very small in terms of usage, decentralized worlds. But it seems like it makes sense.
Yeah. I think for me, the mission is making something that can seem overwhelming,
Mm,
abstract, and maybe
mm,
frightening for some people.
mm, mm,
Make that something they can wrap their heads around and
mm,
understand, and not feel
mm,
like they're not included in this future.
mm.
So
No, I think so.
that's a big thing for me, is kind of being able to kind of let people know this is their future too. They're
Mm,
invited to this party.
mm. And also, a lot of them are, a lot of us have experienced the exploitation of the alternative way of doing things,
Mhm.
which can sometimes not feel so good. Um, what to tell me a little bit about what you think about digital fashion, because I think that's an area with the Fabricant and with Artifact and with the rest that you've been kind of observing and all of that. How do you see that in the developing in the next year or so?
It's developing really fast.
Mm,
I can't be very public. I can't be very
mm,
public about all the stuff I'm doing.
cool.
Okay, so digital fashion.
Yeah.
So what is really important for for people to understand is that while I write about these things,
Mm,
and that's the public persona they see, what they don't see is that behind the scenes, I'm actually involved in a lot of these projects. Like
mm,
some of the biggest ones you've seen come in the
mm,
headlines. I
mm,
just can't be public about it, at least for
mm,
now.
mm,
So I'm helping the fashion world envision
mm.
what the
Terrific.
future could be for them. Right?
Mm,
What does it mean? How can they change as a brand and
mm,
adapt? And how do they, how, if they still, they sell physical garments, but what do
mm,
those become in the metaverse? What can they become? What could be, what does the brand become? And
mm,
that's just, to me, I pinch myself every day. I'm like, how lucky am I that I'm
mm,
actually able to have these conversations with fashion brands and really sit down and envision things with them.
mm,
Um, and a lot of times is helping them understand that in these virtual worlds, the clothes don't have to be the same as in the physical world. They can do so many more things.
mm,
So it's changing their mindset in some ways, right? So it's
mm,
exciting. I feel very lucky to be able to do the things I do.
Yeah, that's super cool. When you think about the 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 opportunities for avatars, um, do you foresee us having many avatars? Do you see kind of people choosing one sort of tribe, like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and sticking with that? Do you see people maybe having a different avatar for different moods or different psychological states? How do you kind of think about this explosion of avatars now?
I think we'll have different avatars that will wear in different occasions, just like we have different
Mm,
outfits,
mm,
right? And I talk about this in some of the hologram work I do, the volumetric video. Let's use the term hologram.
mm,
just for ease of understanding, but it's not really
Totally.
it's volumetric video. But sometimes, if let's say if I'm talking to a client that is in the government or defense, and they're looking to do some simulation training, they're probably going to want a very high fidelity version of General X, right? As opposed to a more cartoony version of General X. And that's a great setting. Like that's where they need that type of realistic, very, very realistic type of avatar. But if it's me having, spending time with some friends, having a drink, a drink in the Decentraland, why not be whatever I want to be that day? It could be a unicorn. So I think it really depends, and it'll eventually change with our moods and also with our PFPs, with our with Bored Apes and all those sorts of things. There's a lot of power in the sense that if I have that in my wallet, and having that in my wallet gives me access to a special entrance to a special event, or a discount of a certain, discount that I can only get if you prove that that's in my wallet. That's where I think it gets really interesting. For me.
Oh my God, Cathy, where are you? Your computer,
goodness.
I think, has frozen a little bit.
Yeah, it is. And I'm trying to reboot.
Well, we're just let's just use audio, and I'm gonna run, like a headless chicken around Decentraland. But I wanted to ask you about, where you see these PFP projects going. Do you see us all VTubing as our avatars? By which I mean, in Zoom calls now, we would only be visible as our avatars. Do you see AR playing a role in that we would wear glasses, and instead of seeing each other, over dinner as our meat space selves, we would actually see the avatars over us, so that there would be coherence across the digital and physical worlds? Like, where do you see this trend of PFPs in 5 years? Let's say when there's been like time to actually innovate and time to really like push it forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of things are going to start to happen. You're going to start to see more of these apes and some punks and, cats or whoever being represented by agents, and the IP just kind of going where no one really thought it could go. I always tell people imagine if you could own, and I wrote about this, imagine if you could have owned a piece of Mickey Mouse, or a piece of Looney Tunes, or the next Bugs Bunny, right? That's very powerful, right? That's powerful IP. And with Bored Apes, which, I aped in as a mutant, I'm, there's Jenkins de Valet, who's kind of organizing this like book, and you can buy a ticket to be part of the writer's room. So I'm already thinking,
what is that? I haven't heard about Jenkins.
Oh, you haven't heard of that?
What's that? No.
There's Jenkins de Valet. So he's like a personality within Bored Apes, and he's putting together this like writer's room. You have to get a ticket. There's only a certain number of tickets, and they're going to be writing a book about the apes, and you can write your story. So I'm already thinking of like the background story for my mutant. Yeah,
it's so cool. So it's like as the fiction. I mean, it's so important for virtual beings. Like that's absolutely fascinating. So you're going to kind of create a little bit of a narrative for your ape of who they are, who that virtual being is. That's super interesting. I mean, it's really, I love all that.
And then some way when in the writer's room, we figure out, and this is all like getting started. It's just getting started, literally. We figure out like, where does that fit in the story and the narrative? Where does my mutant come in? Right.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's
like there's a through line.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a screenplay, and you have all these people in the writer's room trying to figure out how these characters interact and what's the storyline here. So yeah, it's kind of fun.
No, that is super fascinating. So it's not just, I thought you meant like it's just a vignette about your character, but there's also an Uber narrative. I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, and mine is not by any means like the star of the show. It's just mine is a character.
You're being modest. You're being modest, Cathy.
But it's going to be really interesting to see how all these different storylines come together, and and what comes from it? I think it's going to be a lot of creativity. It's going to be beautiful.
Mm. Well, I mean, I'm part of FWB, which is a social token community, and it's super. I find it super interesting because it's so similar to what's happening in Sandbox and Decentraland and all the rest, except it's not visual at the moment because it's in Discord, although it's growing in the metaverse. But something that I find is meeting people first as their avatars means that I kind of want that. I want that kept. I find it very disturbing now meeting people in person that I've met as an avatar. And so I don't know what you think about how augmented reality might be the game changer for digital fashion and for identity. I guess that we could actually have identities that are totally divorced from our bodies.
I mean, as a woman, I would say that is exciting to me because there is a certain level of pressure, right? To be a certain way, or I'm really short. Like I'm 5 feet tall, and when people meet me, I'm like, oh wow, you're short. Like I've always been short. You just never met me in person, or I wasn't assumed, right? So you can't really see my height. So so to me, it's breaking free of some of those things and that kind of added layer of pressure and just wow, be my fabulous self that I want to break out of this shell and be, right? And I can be that in these virtual spaces, and AR will possibly allow me to do that as well, right? Where I just put on my favorite filter and my favorite AR dress and I look fabulous, and I go out there and people can see this through their through their wearables. So it's exciting. It's interesting because I posted something on LinkedIn about ByteDance launching a 3D avatar app called Pixel in Southeast Asia. It's fairly new, new news. And someone there was commenting saying that avatars are gonna give girls a lot of a lot of issues, et cetera. So I'm like, well, yes and no, because there is the Instagram pressure to be perfect for Instagram has been really bad, right? So they've used filters, they've used all of these things. But what if the pressure wasn't that? What if it wasn't like that? What if it'd be more like just be whoever you want to be and be fluid? And one day you can be a purple unicorn, and the next day you could be a male sumo wrestler, right? The amount of opportunity that allows us for expression, I think, is big, and people miss the point of identity and identity being fluid and being able to kind of be more free beyond the shell that we've been given. So yeah, I think there's great power in avatars, and I think you might have you read this article that I wrote from with Akash, where it was an exclusive where he came to me and said, hey, I want you to be the person to write this, where he talked about how genies helped him, right? In his mental health journeys, and his avatar did. And I'm like, well, the people that are right, the people that are saying these things might be a little old school, and they might not understand that to my children, their avatar is equally as important as how they show up in these virtual worlds is equally as important to them as how they show up at school or in the physical world.
Well, something just building on that, something I've been wondering about, because obviously right now we're selecting our avatars from either pre-made parts or from a 10,000 avatar drop. And, I'm just thinking about the Renaissance and these great painters who would paint your portrait in order to kind of announce your presence in society. I'm curious if we're going to get to the point where it makes sense as an investment to spend money on having a great three-dimensional artist create a unique avatar for you that kind of reflects how you want to be seen.
I mean, that obviously you're talking to, speaking, you're singing to the choir here. To me,
exactly.
That makes total sense, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, I can envision who I would want to work with, maybe some ideas, or like, wow, what would it look like? And if that could represent my ultimate self, what would it look like?
I think there is something to that. Yeah. No, I've been thinking about it for the last couple of weeks. All right. Well, I have one question from pre-written from an audience member, and then I think we'll wrap there.
Mhm.
So, the question is, will there be one metaverse, or will there be many metaverses?
The way I explain it to people is there's the greater vision of the metaverse. So when I
Mm,
refer to the metaverse, I'm talking about
mm,
that greater metaverse. It's almost like you have to
mm,
think about it from, you know how in the US you have the greater tri-state area or the greater
mm,
whatever area that's usually different
mm,
in different states or different cities. You almost
mm,
have to envision like the greater metaverse. So the metaverse is that greater metaverse, but there's all these meta worlds or virtual worlds or metaverses or whatever might be the right term within that greater vision, right? And
mm,
it is these virtual worlds, but it's also our real world with layers on
mm,
it, right?
mm,
So, to me, the term it's a little weird right now to define it using today's
mm,
terms,
mm.
which is
It's interesting.
hard, right?
Mm,
Very hard. So, if someone in the past would have said, "Oh, it's going to be," they would have used the term like TikTok or LinkedIn or something. People were like, "What is that?" People used to say the internet was like, what is it? The information superhighway. Like,
mm,
no one says that. Like, I'm going to get on the
mm,
information superhighway right now. Uh,
mm,
so we're trying to describe something with the words we have today, and it's hard.
mm. I
So,
think
so
yeah,
yeah. So it's
it's
a hard thing to do.
unpredictable how we'll talk
Predictable.
about it.
And I went to Merriam-Webster
Mm.
on the web to try to see is the word metaverse even in there. And at the time that I went there, it wasn't in. It was not there.
God, what are we doing? We've got to go to the Oxford English Dictionary and tell them, what the hell are you guys doing? You're sleeping. You're asleep over here.
Yeah. So
Actually, I
it's one of those
mean,
things. How do you
we've got to go
define
to
a
them.
word
Mm. As
that
it's being
regular
built,
people can't
as what
even
it's
find in
being
the
referred to as
dictionary?
being built. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Cathy. This was hilarious and super fun. And yeah, really, really great to chat with you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, speak to you soon. Thank you, Cathy.
Bye.
Bye.